Hello everyone at the venue and hello everyone at the stream. Drop some emojis in the chat if you are there. My name is Henri Forsström, also known as Hamo in social medias and in HypeHype. And I am working in HypeHype as a lead artist. I do pretty much all kinds of things with art. I do 3D modeling from 3D modeling to making games and making these scenes, just art in general. And what am I here to talk about is how we are doing with game art in general in the industry at the moment. What's the current topic of user-generated content, and how are we boosting it? All of this with HypeHype. Before we continue, I want to ask if we have any artists or people that consider themselves as artists in the room right now. That's an insane amount. What about developers or programmers? And that's the other half. Amazing. I see you, Killi. Sorry about that. Yeah. Hope you enjoy the talk that I have, and I have reserved some time for questions at the end. So let's get started. Or actually, before we get started, if you follow through a couple of slides ahead, I have a secret to reveal to you guys at the end. It's something epic we haven't seen before in mobile industry, not even shared outside of HypeHype yet. This is something completely new. What is game art? Let's start with a simple question. We all know game art can be anything from 2D to 3D. It can even be animations, music, sounds, effects, shaders to textures, anything that's used in a game project to bring in the aesthetic, basically. Easy, right? But there's a catch. I realized this when I was thinking about like game art in general, with, comparing it to how assets and user-generated content works in these current days. And generally, game art comes from a need from gameplay. The game defines what you need the art for, in just generally speaking. Let's think about it a bit. You might have a need for an animated character for the player to adventure in your worlds. Well, that's a need, and you fill in it with a character. That's for sure relevant to your narrative, your world, aesthetic, brand, whatsoever. You need a cyberpunk city for the player to walk in, to play around in. You need coins to collect. All of those come with a need. And they follow a simple principle, a rule of form follows function. The coin needs to look like a coin so that you want to pick it up and whatsoever. It's spiced up with choices that you do in the game's aesthetic, narrative, and all the gameplay technicalities, right? Then, what about UGC side of this? It's not much different from the classic field of game art. Although, if, for example, you make a model for Sketchfab, you make a model to Roblox or art to Unity Asset Store, you don't really know what the asset is going to be used for. This is a complete flip that what I just talked about in the previous slide, where everything comes from a need. Now, actually, you don't really know what this might be used for. Characters that you might create for your, like as a player character, might be used in animations or enemies or just backdrops in some whatever environment. You don't really know, so it's a very difficult environment to work in to understand what this will be used for. There is no function defined. Instead, you might be aiming to prove your skills. You might want to upload something that you're proud of, or something that gets a lot of downloads, purchases. And this is usually something generic, or something that follows a trend. Well, long ago, some developers realized that if they create level makers in their games, they don't actually need to make their own levels necessary for that game. They just let players to create the games for them. This long ago happened with a couple of games like Trackmania, Habbo Hotel, Roblox, even Little Big Planet. They took the concept even further. Some of these created the whole game around user-generated levels, which is one of the core things about user-generated content. You give them tools, you give them some assets, and they build things around those. The creators were able to share their creations with everyone. And eventually, some games like Roblox made it into a whole ecosystem with monetization and stores. And Roblox here is a great example of anyone being able to make anything, sell it, share it. They have over 150 million items made by users in their avatar shop alone, with almost 2 billion items sold last year alone. That's an insane amount of people wanting to buy stuff that users create. You can't ever predict as a developer what they might be using this for. Sure, Roblox is heavily working around with the avatar scene. Customize your character. Creators make things that follow trends with rapid pace and fill up those gaps. In the game engine space, Unity and Unreal, they opened their asset stores, where skilled developers and artists were able to sell their creations on demand. And for game developers, this kind of UGC-like art is all about rapid prototyping. Well, right now it is. Developers often grab some cheap, easy, game-ready assets from asset stores in order to test their gameplay functionality, their levels, quickly, only to be replaced later on with assets specifically created for the game. You've seen this probably in some examples if you've looked at how games are created. Maybe one good example could be some old, even like Blizzard games like Overwatch. They started with like blockouts of levels and put there some like super simple assets, maybe from asset store to be replaced later on with their own artists creating what they actually want to do with those. However, now, I want to talk about a little bit about mobile games. Is this thing working? My magic stick broke. Can I fix it? Let's talk a little bit about the rise of mobile games. They have been on the rise for a while now. Over 2 billion mobile games worldwide play games. This brings a ton of attention to the whole mobile game industry. With the rapid development of mobile technology, games have become more and more complex and more graphically capable. There are less and less limitations of what you can do or what you can't do with mobile art. We have moved, even these days, from the classic Snake with 2 colors, simple graphics, and now we are bringing desktop Fortnites and Genshin Impacts on mobiles. And that's pretty mind-blowing. Genshin is a really great example how AAA has been executed smoothly on any mobile device. Less limitations doesn't mean no limitations, though. Always lower-end devices are lagging behind in terms of graphics, and there's a long way till we get the majority of gamers to actually enjoy what the games are like marketed out to be, to enjoy this kind of level of detail on a general basis. What we have right now in the mobile scene is this kind of mentality leading to a lot of compromises made from a business perspective, right? Simple graphics, minimal aesthetic choices can amass more players, possibly. And sometimes, yeah, I know, less is more. That's that idiom you have heard millions of times, especially as an artist. But in latest years, the hyper-casual art style, as we call it, which looks pretty much like this, or, well, the lack thereof of art style, it has become more of a cheap feeling way to make money fast. But that's kind of what the mobile game industry has grown into. An insanely rapid evolving battle between endless amounts of simple, fun games. That leads many developers to grab game-ready assets from asset stores. But the catch is that they actually just pretty much keep their assets there. They don't replace them with their artists creating necessarily some amazing narrative-driven characters or environments. Artists are there to make those, what they have, look pretty, look captivating, look dynamic, but not really to stand out from that kind of perspective. All in all, this leads to a market where a lot of games in mobile can look pretty uninspiring. And sometimes even identical, like they are mass-produced in a factory. Well, despite all of that, they're shockingly popular and really, really profitable. The most popular example here I wanted to bring in is the infamous stick figure character running in all games that you see in mobile top charts all the time. And yeah, we know we're pretty tired of it. Maybe we can fix the system at some point. But this thing apparently works. I want to talk about HypeHype just a tiny bit. What is it? People in the community, the first thing they call it is like a TikTok of games. You can play millions of games instantly. With friends, with foes, with any device, mobile, desktop, tablet, even Tesla, from anywhere. We designed it to be a mobile-first app, but all of it, the games, and everything that it has to install, can be used anywhere. Not only can you play without any additional downloads, you can also create and remix any kinds of games directly in the app and launch them instantly. No need for any kind of a publisher or contracts or middlemen to take your game and set it out to the world. You just do it directly in the app with a press of a couple of buttons. Me personally, thanks for asking, by the way, I like to use HypeHype, especially when I'm traveling in the bus, or you guys know when you're in the kind of like the bathroom or sauna and your creativity is flowing. Sauna is literally my favorite place to use HypeHype with. But that might just be me. Try it sometime. Well then, let's go to the art side of this. What's the role of art in HypeHype? As we know, like we discussed previously, art is essential for the whole gaming experience, both from creation to gameplay. In HypeHype, art is actually one of the core pillars that keep everything together. Art consists in HypeHype of 3D assets, game-ready pre-made sounds, music, animations, effects, but essentially, games themselves in HypeHype are art. They can be stories, visual experiences, something cool you made that you wanted to share in the world, or just memes. There are so many memes. Even we developers don't understand what they're all about, with these toilets running around destroying the cities. Either way, playing a lot of different games on HypeHype can feel like it inspires you to create something trendy, something completely unique, which you can hop on to do right away. You just press remix or start creating from scratch. The artistic freedom of HypeHype fosters creativity, I think. And the speed and accessibility, not to mention how social and community-driven it is, it makes it super easy to get started. Just one app, everything's in it. And like I mentioned before, it is easy to build your worlds in HypeHype using what we have in art is an ever-growing library of assets. We have kickstarted it, community has taken it over, and now, so far, there are almost 20,000 completely free to use assets in HypeHype's asset library. And this ever-growing library of choice makes game making and remixing much more streamlined. Sure, you don't need to go to external asset stores to buy assets or download free assets that you use all the time. You can just window shop and get inspired and just add them in your game completely free and edit them as you wish. Well, the truth is, not all artists are interested in making games. As sad as it is, it's true. Some asset makers just want to create worlds or simple models, simple art, paintings. Those then can be used by other creators. Some developers here, you might be interested in not creating your own art, but looking into the assets catalog and getting inspired by some complete scenes or packages or simple, unique assets that some artists have created and uploaded. Some even want to join teams. And as an artist joining a team, you can create environments or You can create characters, or just take over the whole full game aesthetics. And this works for especially developer-oriented people as well. They can create logic assets that are not full games. They can be like player controllers or some amazing things that happen when you trigger a button or a trap. We call these packages pre-mades, and you can just usually drag and drop them into your game, and they are pretty much game ready. This is something that is hard to achieve seamlessly in any other game engine, I think. That you can just hop in and collaborate seamlessly with others in the community or outside of the community. As you almost always exclusively need to use external sites or services to contribute or collaborate with others. We are still in early access, so our focus hasn't been much on the graphics yet. We have been developing this for pretty much 3 years now. And the current graphical style of HypeHype, well, you can tell it's very mobile friendly, easy to get into, simple. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Our goal is to make this possible, to create any kind of visual style you can imagine. Lately, our amazing team, a small one at that though, has been working on upgrading our whole rendering pipeline and introducing a ton of new features that bring the graphics to a whole new level. We are talking textures, physically based rendering, painting, terrain tools, post-processing effects, you name it. Any other game engine, if they have this feature, we are going after them. I want to give you now a sneak peek about what I teased in the start of this show. It's something that is actually coming later this week to the app that you can download as an update. This hasn't ever been seen on stage before, so get prepared. So what we have here, we had recorded some footage of just us playing around in HypeHype editor. Yeah, it's the app. It's now on tablet. All the buttons are there. So what we have been building is a jump to the current generation-ish of graphics. And this includes textures, easy way of changing how your games look and feel with just simple presets. Here we are playing around with looking how just changing dynamically lighting, some ambience, and sun can really make a difference with a couple of taps away how your game looks or feels. In here we also see some textures that we have not before yet implemented in HypeHype. It's been a hassle. It's a challenge, I mean, with the fact that we are having instant games, no downloads required. It's been a challenge and we are working on it, but here, this is a sneak peek, and I can show, I would have another video going into deep diving of actually changing things and showcasing this like gameplay here. And you might not believe this, but we actually, sure, we have physically based rendering, all these dynamic lights, post-processing effects, ambience whatsoever. What are these words even? We tested this on iPhone 6, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's from 2014, which is roughly 10 years old mobile phone. We played this game on it, and it runs 60 FPS, which is nuts, to say the least. Lower-end devices finally can rejoice. Okay, let's talk briefly about community and user-generated content a little bit. In HypeHype, games and assets are made by the community. UGC is our core principle, and it affects all parts of the app. Like, we know from games, the game experiences, visuals, aesthetics. Kind of like TikTok, our algorithm is powered by users. If you create and share something, it is up to the community. They play, they drop likes and comments on your games. They start following you. It's all community-driven. You could say even that part is like user-generated. They start following you. You start to become popular, and your games and assets, they skyrocket as well. Even better yet, a player might get inspired by your game and even remix it into another level or something completely different. This, aside from just the games, means of course assets as well. You can make something outside of HypeHype and upload it into HypeHype. 3D models and music are what we started with. Or you can just simply use the app to create your 3D models of stuff in it. You can keep them privately or share them to be used by anyone in the community. And actually going through the asset browser just feels like a shopping experience, like window shopping basically. You just go around a store and grab some items, put them in your basket, and then make a game out of those. Not gonna say if it's gonna be a good game, but it's gonna be a game for sure. Not too long ago, we made it possible for users to release their own content like this. We kind of kept silent about it as the feature wasn't completely ready yet, but we released it, and just out of nowhere, users found it out how to do this, and they started to upload their own assets, create their own assets in HypeHype, and so far, just a couple of maybe months ago, but that we released this feature, there have been so far 300 assets every week uploaded. And mind, we are still in early access with a very limited amount of users. Right now, we are working on asset moderation tools and improving how the whole asset making user experience works. Users will be able to report nasty assets, so moderation is coming. And for the future, we are planning on bringing the whole social ecosystem to the asset level. Social metrics, likes, comments, will make it easier to find assets that work for you, but we are not stopping only there. Better algorithmic search will make it easy for you because you can filter assets that seem like they fit your game's aesthetic in the future. We also want to make it easier to be able to collaborate with other users when making assets. Here are a couple of pics that I found just scrolling through something that people had been creating, and I think they look pretty cool. They have been used quite a bit, especially like the pepper frog right in the corner. And I want to highlight one of these assets as a good example of some artists that doesn't really care about making games. HypeHype created this Candyman. Now, another user called Potato Chan found this and used it in their game. The game is called Candy Battle, and in it you control this Candyman and beat these candy bosses. It's pretty much that. It's really cool. You should try it. But the thing is, HypeHype never knew that that would be the use case. And this is just one of those examples. There are hundreds of games where Candyman has been used in all kinds of ways, not just player. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I would like to talk to Reachip how they feel about this, because personally, if my assets were used in these kind of amazing looking games, that would make me really proud. We are nearing the end, so let's quickly talk about why should you use and care about using HypeHype for making art. What is it that you make art for? Many do it for simply the love of creating. Many share their proudest works in social media, like ArtStation or Instagram. And all of them love the feedback they get, the praise, likes, and comments. We've all been there, looking and refreshing what we just published, trying to see if some actually care what you created. The versatility of HypeHype means of creative expression gives many ways to share your work with others. Seeing your games being remixed into all kinds of different new levels and complete new game experiences, it's essentially a sign of admiration, I think. And seeing your assets, like the Candyman in the previous slide, used in games made by others, just feels awesome. Not only that, it also gives exposure. For artists that want to go even further beyond and level up, HypeHype is a great platform to hone your skills, challenge yourself, and get instant feedback. Make fast iterations. You can edit your assets instantly, no waiting times needed. You can even build a portfolio in HypeHype and connect with other makers. We have seen some artists just create these beautiful scenes with their own uploaded 3D models and even music, and they use it as a portfolio, kinda. Hey, look at me. This is kind of like the art that I do. Pretty cool. With this, there have been also stories of artists being asked to be working in game projects by developers as well. There's, though, one thing we haven't yet talked about, and it gets asked wherever we go. What about monetization? I want to say the answer is yes. There will be ways to earn with your creations in HypeHype, but unlike in hyper casuals, it doesn't mean we are implementing tons of ads. We don't want to put ads in HypeHype like that. But that's all I can say. We are hoping to be able to shed more light on this as soon as possible. I personally am super passionate about the growth of UGC when done well. It brings inspiration and power of expression to the creator community, which is pretty much all artists at least. I've always loved level creation tools in games, but they rarely took the step forward from being just a glued-on feature. My secret mission is to enable anyone to make inspiring and captivating art that can bloom into games. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, Henri, for the secrets that you shared with us today. If there's any questions, again, raise your hand. We'll give you the mic, and then you have a chance to ask. I'm going to start with something. So you've been working with HypeHype quite a long time with the art style. So how do you like? It's different thing to create a style to a UGC platform than to create a style to a game that nobody will change in terms of visuals. Can you give us a little bit of opening up your process on that? How do you do that part? If you had like comparison of the previous experience of working with a stable game.
Okay. Well, my experience mostly comes from doing indie stuff personally, and on a business level, just working with mobile games that we in Frogmine and our previous company, from moving into HypeHype, we created Badland and Rumble Hockey and all these mobile games. In those games, they were always, most of the time, gameplay first, right? And you do the gameplay, core meta loops, and numbers, calculating all the ways that you can make money out of those games before you actually like put too much effort into art. Because making art takes time, it takes a lot of skill and money. So there's always a lot of carefulness that goes into what you should be doing. So on a personal experience, I've seen HypeHype dividing creators into two. There are people that come from a technical kind of mindset, and they start just creating their kind of like the how they want the game to be played, right? Or if it's not a game, it might be an animation, it might be a story, or just a simple scene doing some cool things. Some have done some amazing physics simulations, for example, but they usually start with that kind of like a environment. Art comes as an afterthought or along when you build that. But the other side of HypeHype's UGC or community way of creating is they, especially the people with considering themselves as artists, they start with ideas and visuals first, and then they create the gameplay around that. Hey, what if I just put this Mario here? Let's see what happens. Mario, egg. Okay, how they should like go together? Let's see. And then you just put a bird there, and the bird flies and grabs the egg, and you just chase it, and okay, now we're talking. Now we're cooking. So I personally like the explorative part of the ladder experience, but it has merit to both sides. Sometimes that latter one might not go anywhere, might not feel good to play in games, especially on mobile. Gameplay satisfaction matters so much that it is really vital that that is nailed for success, if that's what you're going for.
Okay, good. I can take it. There's one question from the audience. While we're waiting for the mic to come to Kride, I'm asking, how much have you followed Roblox and their kind of design choices, and how much inspiration have you taken from them to your work?
For HypeHype, we are constantly looking at how Roblox has been able to touch like millions or even billions of players and creators alike and capture their interest and enthusiasm and put that into just using their platform to play and make games with.
But how about art?
Art-wise, well, I suppose it's a very similar field. It's almost completely driven by community, and asset perspective is the same. They have asset marketplace like Unity and Unreal, and us as well. But I guess it's more like people have ended up creating whatever they kind of feel like. So a lot of Roblox games, some of them are made to be looking beautiful. They have obviously artists working together with them. And a lot of them are looking like they don't have artists involved.
That's very nicely put.
The same applies to a lot of HypeHype games as well so far. But what they did is defined on a principle that they're built like almost 10 years ago. It's a long way down. And they they probably weren't even ready for what Roblox was going to be used as. So we have been looking at that quite detailedly and try to understand what we could do differently to be able to make it so that it's easier for anyone to create the kind of games that they would like to create, especially aesthetics and visuals wise. One example is that we are trying to make it so easy that just by simple taps, like you saw on the screen, you can change how the game looks drastically. And that kind of simplicity that especially TikTok brought with their filters, and Instagram back in the day with the filters that you can change, that's the kind of direction we want to go for. And that's something that Roblox doesn't have at all. So I think we can build up on those kind of learning points. Yeah.
All right, I have a question that kind of bridges towards the perhaps next presentation. I want to hear, like, not thinking of the users who are using HypeHype, but you specifically. What is your job like as a art team lead? Like, what do you do here at the company, and how do you direct artists? How do you manage an art team in this kind of space, creating for a UGC platform?
Excellent question. Short answer, we don't have artists here. A little bit untrue. Right now, I'm working with a really talented artist, Daniel, and together we are trying to build an ecosystem where artists that are our community are able to then bake these assets and these environments and templates and scenes to create something beautiful with. So what we are doing, personally, I'm doing a lot of kickstarting of asset making, and the whole asset catalog is something that I'm trying to keep up to date so that users have a really good base to create something beautiful and simple with easy tools, with lots of possibilities. And we together are trying to make these tools something that's not too advanced, but something that's easy to use, but can lead up to a lot of different varying choices. So it's a lot of technical work for us. We don't necessarily manage our community at all, other than moderate some nasty looking assets. Aside from that, we just want to power users to create as beautiful things as they can with as low effort as they can. And this, of course, is a lot of technical details that we try to, for example, in the editor, try to limit ourselves. Like, do they really need these sliders? If they crank this here, it looks really bad, but a lot of game engines have all those accessible, but we really try to look up to mobile successful apps like TikTok and Instagram as how they removed a lot of unnecessary things and made those that were still in there a really easy and powerful tool.
How many assets do you have available that is not done by the community in HypeHype? It's done by the studio.
Okay, so from those 20,000 that we have, I would say 25% is something that we did, and the rest have been powered by other users. Our kickstarting includes some level of asset outsourcing to freelancers in Finland and outside of Finland that we have found, or they have come to us, and we have been working together to power this kind of economy where we can boost this kind of new technology, such as the new rendering pipeline fitting assets. And this, just to let that, I would love if it would be able to just toss the ball into the ocean and see what happens if they can build something cool out of that. But we have realized that we need to build the kind of ball bit first, and then they follow that example and create something around that level of quality standard that we kind of try to aim for.
Okay, thank you. We're running out of time. Thank you, Henri.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you,
big
everybody,
big
so much.
applause to and.